Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Hello and welcome to Saturday's edition of the dceu Daily. And wow, don't go on Twitter if you are in a nervous disposition, because the toxicity and the divisiveness chatter towards birds of prey is at fever pitch, and I really tried to avoid the arguments. Now, we have to look at this because, first of all, the Thursday box office for Birds of Prey was around 4 million. This was about 4 or 5 million short of the target that everyone said it would do, and projections have now gone lower to 40 million, a 40 million domestic weekend, rather than the 50 plus million domestic weekend. But we don't know. Today at some point, American box office experts and sites will be posting what the movie did on Friday. This will, of course, tell us everything. This will tell us how much money this film's actually going to make over the weekend and the openings and things like that. So people, look, the fandom menace have been screaming flop, right? Is this film going to flop? Is this film not going to make a profit? This film will make a tiny, tiny profit. Now, I still expect this film to make just shy of 400 million. That's still a good profit for Warner Brothers. But we need to compare Joker and Birds of Prey. Both films, right, are R-rated. Both films not released in China. Both films produced on an entirely small budget. So what's the first difference we can talk about between these two films? Well, basically, Joker movie is Todd Phillips' vision. He had an idea. He came to the studio. He knew what he wanted to do. It's his. He was allowed to do what he wanted. Now, Cathy Yan. Now, that's very, very, very different, because Cathy Yan didn't have a vision. Cathy Yan was found by Margot Robbie and employed. She had very little experience. She has no experience in blockbusters. She has no experience in action set pieces. This was very problematic, and this is what she said. I certainly didn't know whether I could handle something this big, but I also had faith that we'd figure it out. I felt my hiring was a good sign. Cathy Yan, the first woman of colour to direct a superhero movie. Cathy Yan's actually an Asian lady, not a woman of colour, but that's neither here nor there, right? They had to bring in Chad Slavinsky, is it, who does all the action set pieces for the John Wick movies. We know that. They went back and they clearly did action set pieces with Cathy. She obviously didn't pull it off to the studio's liking, and they had to bring Chad Slavinsky in, or however you say his surname, right? So the action in this film is really good, but they brought in another person to do that, right? That's not really the norm. Of course you have stunt coordinators and action set piece coordinators, but normally the director's proficient enough to be involved in that. This director wasn't, right? So already we knew she wasn't capable of directing this whole film. Very problematic. But again, we need to take it up a notch or two, right? Because basically, as I say, Joker had all the disadvantages that Birds of Prey did, right? And let's not forget, as much toxicity as there is from this film, from the extreme right, there was as much toxicity aimed at Joker from the extreme left. Joker made over $1 billion globally. It's still making money. It had a re-release. It is nominated for 11 Oscars, right? It's a win. It's a bigger win than Warner Brothers or Todd Phillips ever imagined, right? It captured people's imagination. This film has a huge commentary on male mental health, and it was executed in a really compelling way. Birds of Prey also has a commentary, but not about male mental health or female mental health. And let's be honest here. Harley is stark raving bonkers. She was a criminal psychologist, right? So the mental health thing could and should have played a part, but that's not the kind of film they wanted to do. They wanted to make a feminist girl gang movie that commentates on toxic masculinity. Ewan McGregor has said it 2 or 3 times. Again, doesn't help, right? And so they've done this film where these women team together. They've all been treated badly by men. They take back their womanhood. They beat the shit out of a bunch of men. This has obviously triggered a lot of people, right? One of the reasons the box office is coming in low, right? And so you've got this situation, but there's another situation. The DCEU fan base is splintered in little corners. You have the fans of Zack Snyder, who was removed from the DCEU, which has made people really angry. Clearly boycotting the movie, clearly got an agenda. Now I'm talking about, again, the rogue elements of this community, not you and not me, right? So you've got these people mouthing off on Twitter, right? I've seen so many, and it's so hard not to reply to these people because these people, in social media terms, are my friends. And we support the same thing. We like the same stuff. We love MOS. We love BBS. I'm arguing, right? I had an argument with the JoeBlow.com guy. Not an argument, but he started going off on one about Donald Trump. And in something I never thought I'd do, I had to block him. I had to block him because we were going to have an argument. And I didn't want to argue with him. He seemed like a really measured film blogger. He's been very positive about the Snyder Cut. But positive about the Snyder Cut or not, when you start talking politics and Trump, you've lost me. You've lost my support. One guy, big deal, doesn't matter. I'm just one insignificant guy, but I can't carry on. People are weaponizing movies. Not just us movie consumers, but the actual industry. And this is what happens, right? But in terms of Joker, Todd Phillips never weaponized that film. It wasn't a weaponized film. It was about a man who is let down by society and his government, and there was no support for his mental health to help him. Because when he's on his meds, he's manageable. But then, because of the way society treat people suffering with mental health and pretending it's not there, especially where this film is set in the 80s, it was even more worse. It was a great piece of commentary. When you get Joaquin Phoenix, you're going to get something special. And Todd Phillips and Joaquin together were dynamite. It was a compelling movie. And this is why, despite having 2 hands tied behind their backs, in terms of China, in terms of the R rating, people went to see it in their droves. It captured imagination. People were going to those stairs he dances on and started dancing. There's parodies. There's GIFs or GIFs or whatever you call them. That film is a massive bang. It's a big success. So how can another DC film, which has got a leg up from Joker because it's got Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, one of the most prominent reasons the Suicide Squad movie did so well. So why aren't people flocking to see Harley? Because as much as I love Margot, and I love Margot, she's weaponized this character. She's weaponized this character and turned her into a feminist. Let me be clear here. Harley Quinn isn't a feminist, right? She's a very mentally ill young character, and she hurts people. She kills people. She looks fun and everything, and that's the best elements of her, right? And Margot Robbie put together a production company predominantly employed by women. We all knew this. Fine. No problem. But they weaponized this movie. Now, they tried their best not to trigger people within the marketing, and they didn't. Now, let me be clear here. For people who say the marketing was bad, the marketing wasn't bad. The marketing was great. It showed great action. It showed a fun time at the movies. I don't think the marketing, so there's lots of experts who say, oh, it's the marketing. Now, in terms of Warner Brothers interfering with this film, they really didn't have a choice, because the point of this movie is that Margot Robbie wanted this, and they want a good relationship with Margot Robbie. She has the power to come in and say, right, set me up a production company with females predominantly being employed, and I want a girl gang feminist movie, Harley Quinn, with a bunch of other girls, and Warner Brothers didn't feel they could say no. So in the end, when Kathy Yan couldn't do the action, they tried to help that situation out. Basically, Kathy Yan was drowning directing this film, and Warner Brothers had to bail her out. They had to interfere. It's not like Justice League. It's a totally different situation. But this is what happens when you see, this is the problem. But I have to look at it from the other point of view. Did Warner Brothers ever foresee that this film may not make much money, that it may make a 40 million domestic weekend? Yes, they knew. Just like they were concerned about Joker and they brought in some sponsors and partners to share the investment with them, they did the same with Birds of Prey. They're not going to lose money from this film. The worst thing that happen, they'll get back their investment. Now, of course, companies want to make money, but I don't think they ever thought they had $1 billion vehicle here. They never did. They never had a $600 million vehicle, a 700, an 800, a 900, right? Never going to happen. But they clearly thought they could get a Shazam kind of profit back on it. That's not out of the question right now. This film could still clear 500 million. This film could still make 400. But realistically right now, and unless it had a really good Friday, this film is going to go no higher than 380 million, 350 million. Again, a really good profit for Warner Brothers, seeing they didn't even invest 100 million in this film. So this film's still going to be a little win. This film was always going to be a little win for Warner Brothers. So nothing's changed in that avenue. Now, let's go back to the DCEU fandom. That's splintered. Like me, I'm a Zack Snyder fan, a Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, who supports everything DC because I'm a DC fan, right? And there's a lot of you out there who are like me. But there's those that are so obsessed with Zack Snyder, so desperate to get him back, they will do anything, they will say anything to poison Walter Hamada's chalice. You're not going to do this. This film still will make a little profit. You're not going to win. The MCU fans, they support everything. Whether they like it or not, they support their team and their franchise. We do not. We are splintered in little sections. And as long as we do that, we're going to have Marvel fans laughing at us because we're a joke. We're a freaking joke, right? Let me be clear. People arguing. One kind of really prominent Snyder fan was showing off that someone blocked him. Right, a few weeks ago, you two were talking friendly, and you're showing off that a fellow fan of the franchise that or a Snyder fan that you support, that you want to see his version of Justice League, has blocked you, and you think it's clever. I'm not going to get into these arguments anymore. I might quote tweet a few, but ultimately, it is pathetic. It is childish. It doesn't matter what you say or what you do. Snyder ain't coming back. We don't even know if we're going to see the Snyder Cut. And at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about the release of the Snyder Cut Justice League, Snyder Cut edition of a graphic novel edition of the Snyder Cut. But first, let's carry on. So there's the Snyder fans versus the DC fans. That's normal. Nothing new there, right? But I didn't think the fandom menace and the right-wingers were going to come so hard on this film. I was being really, really naive because this film is a really hardcore third-wave feminist movie. It is. They don't shout it from the rooftop, but it's there. And when you've got female critics saying, I don't want to see male critics talking about this film. I want to see all the girls and things and nonsense like that. So they're a big movement. The fandom menace are a big movement. And when they want to get their claws into something, they do. I don't always respect them. But look, I'm a bit torn with this because at the end of the day, I did enjoy the film. And I did see it about a week ago. And I thought it was a really good time at the movies, no problem. Now, I knew the undertones of the film and I knew it was feminist, but I didn't care. I liked it. I love Margot Robbie. I think she's one of the most gentle, most genuine young women in the industry. I really do. So whatever happens, the fandom menace are going to call this film a flop, right? But we know the facts. We know the truth. Under $100 million budget, if this film... Look, whatever this film reaches, at the end of the day, it depends how low this film does. If this film goes 300 million plus, 350, 400 million, that's a success. That's a hit because of the investment. I still think it might just go lower than Shazam, but pretty much it's still a little win for Warner Brothers. It was never going to be anything than that. But this is part of the agenda at Hollywood right now. And the fandom menace are always onto it. So there is a situation here, but we still have to ask a question beyond Kathy Yan. And I like Kathy. She seems a lovely person. She does seem like a solid, talented director. But instead of just going to get someone because of her cultural background, they should have really looked into someone who could do action as well. That's my only complaint. But beyond that, again, I have to ask the question, why does Birds of Prey struggle? And why does Joker make $1 billion? What is it? And it is the feminist commentary. People are triggered. People, tempers are heightened. As I say, if you go on Twitter and hashtag Birds of Prey, there's a lot of praise for the movie, but there's a lot of hate. They don't really hate the movie. They hate what the movie's standing for, but they disguise it. This is a bad movie. That's my opinion. You can't say I'm wrong. I can't say you're wrong. If you don't like look, I love a heated debate about movies and TV shows and art. It's great. It's beautiful, right? But when people politically weaponize a film and start saying it's bad and don't like it, but actually they do like it, but it's just a political agenda for them, I can't talk to you because you're not talking about the art. Kathy Yan did a lot of good things in this film. She directed a lot of good moments. She just wasn't capable of doing the action. That's the problem, right? So one critic said this film's about men taking credit for women. Well, actually, Kathy Yan kind of's taking credit for Chad Slavinsky's, I can't do that name, can I, work as well. And so there's some hypocrisy in that kind of statement. But these are the reasons I think, a film like Birds of Prey can't get near Joker. But both films had toxicity thrown at it. Now, Joker wasn't hurt by that toxicity and that agenda from the extreme left, because ultimately, deep down, it was a compelling indie type, really made movie, and it was really well performed, and it was about something real, and it was about the Joker. Now, ultimately, the Joker is as popular as Superman and Batman. That's another thing. So this film was compelling, it was different, it was unique, it had commentary on male mental health, and it's about a very popular character. Put all that in, you're going to print money. Do a film about the Joker is so successful, popular, people love the Joker. Now, people like Harley, so why can't Harley do this? Well, if they wanted to, they could have waited and given Harley a black label movie, right? They could have done another version with another actor, or they could have had Margot do something, right? They could have done something compelling with this character, because at the core of this character, she's an ordinary young woman who is a criminal psychologist. And that commentary in a film like Joker would be amazing. But instead, because of the actor and because of the feminist statements she wanted to make, with employing a predominant female workforce in her production company and the statements she wanted to make in the film, this is what happened. But Joker is talking about male mental health. And as triggering as that is to the extreme left, they didn't have the power, because the arguments they were making, it's just some white male complaining, moaning, his mummy didn't love him enough, or he didn't get this, or he didn't get that. And their arguments could be waved away. But Birds of Prey has got feminist commentary, and that's something you can't. And the problem is the predominant amount of people who go to cinemas are men. Still, many women go to movies, but still, in terms of comic books, you need the male audience. But by making this passive-aggressive commentary on toxic masculinity, you lose that audience. And that's why Joker was so successful, because the mixture of being a great movie and being about a really popular character worked, right? But in terms of Birds of Prey, the whole market, the whole thing is from people, you go on Twitter, great movie, girls. If you want us to go out there and support your girls, go and watch this movie. People ain't going to do it. This film will probably come in probably light of 50 million. Still a good weekend for Warner Brothers. It's still going to make a healthy profit. But because of everyone's on the agenda train, they're going to call it a flop. Now, I can't keep on telling people it's fine and it's not a flop, because They're just going to use it as part of the agenda. But it's just very sad in terms of the fandom menace and in terms of the splintered fandom within the DCEU that we are here. And people, especially the fandom menace, talk half-truths. They know damn well this film's going to make a healthy profit, getting nowhere near $1 billion, getting nowhere near 700 million, but still a healthy profit for Warner Brothers and the investors they brought in to make sure that they didn't lose any money if the film does flop. Now, I don't think it will, but it's going to be called a flop anyway. And this is here we are. This is where we are. This is who we are now. A bunch of people shouting and screaming. Ultimately, Margot Robbie got her own way. It's out there. The film's out there. It's got a great score on Rotten Tomatoes. She got to make a little girl gang feminist movie. And it doesn't matter how much you shout, how much you scream, the film is there. It's part of the DCEU. And ultimately, is this a good time at the movies? Does it entertain you? These are the questions you need to ask yourself, because that's all that matters with films. It's a bloody good film, it's entertaining, and it's a good time at the movies. So shut your noise, and it's going to make a healthy profit, nothing like the predictions, but still a profit for Warner Brothers, and we move on. Please bring on Wonder Woman 1984, because do you know what? It's just so tiring. And at least, well, basically, Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot don't go on the third wave feminism kind of train. Again, Gal Gadot, when she was launching the first trailer, Wonder Woman's for everyone. These are the kind of things we didn't hear from Cathy Yan. These are the kind of things we didn't hear from Margot Robbie. What did Cathy Yan say? She wanted to make sure she made a movie where the women didn't need the men. And I said straight away, well, it's a girl gang movie. Why should they be needing the men? It's a ridiculous thing to say, but already you're causing a cultural war. You're causing a divide. It isn't smart. But nobody's thinking straight because of Trump, because of Brexit. Everyone's gone politically insane. Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. Never discuss politics and religions at the dinner table. Stop weaponizing your movies and let us enjoy our movies and TV shows. Thank you very much. Right. Cinema Blend guy. I forgot his name, but anyway, Cinema Blend guy is saying that a few I's and a few dots need to be crossed and written, and then there will be a Snyder Cut Justice League graphic novel. Yes! Good, isn't it? I literally don't care. I want to see the film. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll buy this. If I can get it, I'll get it. But I want to see the film. And I'm bored of people trying to convince me that substitutes are good enough. The way Zack Snyder was treated was disgusting. Warner Brothers and Christopher Nolan and Jeff Johns and John Berg got it totally wrong. It was totally the wrong set of people to be producing a franchise. And Zack Snyder, who at the end of the day was offered to do something he fantasized about as a boy, wasn't going to say no, whether he was the right man to do it or not. But in the end, he got punished for saying that's not his fault. And he should have at least been allowed to make that movie. Then they could have moved him on. It was all wrong. So he's made this film. We want to see this film. But oh yeah, I will read the crap out of any Snyder Cut graphic novel. And maybe this is why they're holding this competition for a kind of Snyder Cut Justice League poster. Maybe they'll put it in. Maybe the winning one will get on the graphic novel. And hey, look, maybe I'm being a bit harsh. It is exciting. It is great. But I just want to see the film. Now, finally, what are we heading for next? Because Birds of Prey was just a little pit stop. Successful or not, doesn't really matter. Because Walter Hamada has a plan, he has a roadmap, he knows what he's doing, and we will carry on. Now, people will keep on bitching about the DCEU and Birds of Prey and this and that. Whether the DCEU is better than the MCU, that's something I don't want to get into. I love the DCEU. I love DC. I love their characters. That's it. And we've got a lot to look forward to. And people who have an agenda, right? People who have an agenda, you will lose, and you will lose. Please comment down below. Let me know what you think. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please share the channel and the video. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. Wow, that was emotionally exhausting. See you again tomorrow.